Hello, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to our LCS breakdown. This, of course, being week number 6 as we approach slowly but surely the playoff race out there for our final 6 teams from 4th place to 10th place, just one game separating North America. And I am still not sure if I should be worried about when it does eventually come to international play about the North American region. Still, so far, we now have pretty much just 3 consistent teams out there. Liquid, no surprise. Cloud9 right behind them. Likely no surprise for many of you. And I would say TSM now solidifying themselves a close game this past weekend. They probably should have beaten Cloud9, and even without that, they have won 5 of their last 6. Those are our top 3 teams. Everyone behind that has been splitting series upon series upon series, and there's a lot of, I guess you could say, inconsistency in North America right now. In this past weekend, so many late games, so many split push oriented team comps out there. I don't know if I should be worried. I don't know if you guys are, but either way, it's been pretty nerve-wracking to watch your favorite teams out there because likely they're not going to be winning a lot of their games, or it'd be kind of lucky at this point in time if they win a majority of their games. If you're not a Liquid fan, Cloud9 fan, or a TSM fan, your team is likely losing just as many games as they are winning. But either way, this past weekend, of course, like I said previously, TSM, they split their series with Cloud9. Unfortunately enough, Cloud9 go 2-0, Liquid go 2-0. Everyone besides those 2 teams either go 1-1 or 0-2, and we still see a lot of substitute players in right now as well, right? Meteos has found his way back into the starting roster. We have Rush out and Panda in, probably a pretty average first weekend for that, and a few other players out there. But let's break it down. As always, our 5 awards, the first of which are our best teams of this week. And this is actually going to be a shorter segment than the other awards out there. I will say, you know, Cloud9 and Liquid probably deserve their spots there. The only 2 teams, like I said, to go 2-0 this past weekend. I think Liquid still looked relatively unchallenged. Cloud9 a bit closer, especially that matchup against TSM. So I could put TSM in here as well because that game was just so close. The way they opened up that lead, if you guys have not seen the clips out there, the early game and the mid game from TSM was just so dominant. They take the risky pick on Nico, the AP Nico, and I was so impressed by Broken Blade. I'll talk about MVP players in a bit here, but I was just so impressed by overall how well TSM played that early game, and so they could be a team of the week here as well. They should have been able to finish out that game. Just some late game prioritizing went the wrong way for them. One big team fight won by Cloud9 defending their base, and they run it right down mid. So those are probably your 3 options. I think Optic as well, hanging on for dear life. They are lucky along with other teams out there how close this race really is because like we said, it's 4th to 10th place, just one game separates those teams. Optic continue to actually keep up in splitting series and taking out teams that should have been above them. FlyQuest, unfortunately enough, have now lost their last 4 games. One of those was to Optic Gaming. Optic fended them off late game. It was also FlyQuest, the classic. We see them try and split push. Optic fended off and they end it before FlyQuest can finish their split push. So I would say not necessarily an impressive game, but still Optic hanging on does impress me. Now moving on, of course, on top of that, our MVP players of the week, and this is one I definitely am going to enjoy. And first of all, it's impact. Ironically enough, having the biggest impact I thought for this Liquid roster this past weekend. Yes, Liquid does what Liquid does against Optic. It wasn't going to be a close game, a fairly short game as well, but against CLG, it was his split push on Jace that I think won them that game. I don't think, again, when you ask about it, could it have gone either way? Likely not, but still, he put so much pressure on CLG that late game by opening up their base. CLG could not leave their base to take objectives without Impact taking something away. His Jace split pushing was phenomenal, and I think, again, a big reason as to why they won that game in the way they did. Alongside that, though, I was actually super impressed by Broken Blade this past weekend. First of all, against Echo Fox on his rise, the score line does not tell all, guys. On that, actually going 0-4 on that rise, but still his also, like I said in the intro, we saw so many split push comps or split push oriented teams out there. His split pushing on rise, you know, he breaks open the base, I believe around 40 minutes, takes down one Nexus turret, and again, leaves the option for TSM, the threat there to backdoor the entire game, that lingering in the back of their minds for Echo Fox. Eventually, 10 minutes later, they do take down that Nexus, and alongside that, again, scoreline not saying everything. When you look at TSM's matchup against Cloud9, the Nico risk pick, the first time we've seen it all split long on Broken Blade, he builds it AP, and I think early game, really engagement-wise, it seemed to be a very, very tanky, even though all AP build, he seemed to do a very good job engaging, opening up those options for TSM, and that of course, that fight comp, that early to mid-game comp, where they knew they were going to gather that lead. Yes, I think they could have closed it out a bit better, and they obviously failed to close it out, but still, Broken Blade this past weekend, scorelines do not tell everything. He really impressed me with his playstyle. And plays of the week, I could be doing TSM highlight reels here. Maybe I'll throw in a TSM clip as well as a Clutch Gaming early clip as well. Both their early games were just phenomenal from from me, but more so than any, it was actually clutch. It was Lyra and Huni, their early game communication, their coordination against 100 Thieves. Yes, they lose this matchup. Guys, I have said so many times, I've had so many clips so far throughout the 6 weeks where 100 Thieves, they're known to win the early game and throw the late game, right? And every time they now lose the early game, they seem to win the late game. It's really confusing to watch 100 Thieves and be a fan of them currently, but still clutch early on, coordination-wise, was looking stellar against 100 Thieves.
And Hooney's still alive.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. It didn't really seem like Someday and Onda were on the same page because Onda had locked Someday out of the Cataclysm there. And
but now it's the counterattack coming in. They're going to make the gank work this time around. Hooney's going to be taken low, but Someday's lower. Hooney still walks himself out. Onda has no mana left to go, and they'll turn that one into an easy 2-for-0.
An absolute disaster in the top lane here for 100 Thieves. And this is flashback to the Olaf Jace game.
And also, secondly, speaking of late game comebacks, that of course being TSM failing to close it out against Cloud9, their late game comeback was pretty extraordinary. Actually, in a base defense, they take down that team fight. It was looking to slowly turn in their favor, right? TSM at one point approaching a 10k gold lead. At this point in time, it was down to 6 to 7k, and Cloud9 had been picking off a few members in a few encroaching fights. This one, though, they take the ace and they march it down mid or close to the ace as well. Cloud9 looking very impressive in their comeback, but their coach as well, Reaper, says some words you maybe shouldn't be saying live on air.
Away, but that could be a big kill. Svenskeren instead going to be taken down by Broken Blade. Licorice will slam Bjorkton into the ground in retaliation. Pop Blossom comes down. Licorice goes into the stasis. Broken Blade falls. Cloud9, is this your counterattack? Zed will go down. Shut down Kunamononeski. And that is 4-4-1.
No flashes for DSM, and Cloud9 find their revenge. This game delivered, Captain Flowers.
And again, the segments I really don't like doing, that being underwhelming team and underwhelming players of the week, but I feel like it has to be said. Feel free to leave a comment down below who you think was underwhelming this past weekend, but no offense is ever meant by this, but it has to be FlyQuest, right? Losing their last 4 matchups so far in a composition and a team we have known to be, you know, a late game better team, probably favored in that late game, especially when they're allowed to split push like they typically are kind of known to do. And these last 2 to 3 weekends, especially the last weekend and the one before that in week 5, we've seen some later games for NA, which you think would typically favor this team out there, but they have not done so. They failed to close out against Optic, which I was pretty surprised by, and the way that game was going, it was back and forth and back and forth. And I think especially when I have to focus on, I'm not going to say an overall underwhelming player, but in their matchup against CLG, it was Viper. This team brought Riven back into the picking meta almost. Of course, updates have also done so, but you know, looking good early on a couple weeks ago on this Riven, got nothing going against CLG, and they failed to even reach that late game where they're good at split pushing. And again, for when it comes to a losing streak of 4 games so far, their momentum has to be at an all-time low. And again, I would say a team, if they cannot manage at least some splitting series here in the next few weekends, is all of a sudden not going to be a playoff contending team. A team I'm still very hopeful for, definitely has potential, but that's about every NA team right now. And almost every NA team besides our top 3 can either lose a series or win a series against those other surrounding 7 teams, unless it's a TSM, Cloud9, or Liquid. We're seeing just so many inconsistencies. Now, bouncing off that into underwhelming players as well, which has got to be Hanser. I mean, this guy had his own highlight reel for all of his deaths on Rise, ironically enough, against 100 Thieves. It's also the first candidate of this underwhelming player to actually win the game I'm talking about, which is against 100 Thieves. Classic 100 Thieves, they had their advantages, you know, Someday doing what Someday does. You know, he's been a little bit back and forth this past week, but still, I would say a fairly good early game for 100 Thieves, and they still can't manage to finish it out. But either way, it's Hanser and 06 Rise. He had his own highlight reel of all of his deaths out there. Certainly not his best game going forward, but bouncing off that as well, yes, you have a lackluster game from Hanser. I think has been a typically, you know, not too terrible performances so far we have seen, but his standout teammates definitely going to carry this game so far. Definitely has had a great split so far, but among him as well, Froggen, it was just kind of cool to see how they actually bounced back after such a terrible start from Hanser on Rise, and they managed to win that game, but still a definite underwhelming performance there. But as always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoy this week 6 breakdown of LCS. I will of course be back here next Tuesday breaking down week 7, as the race is just as close as you probably could want it to be right now. And if you're a Liquid fan, you're pretty confident. If you're Cloud9 TSM fans, you're pretty confident as well. If you're anyone else out there, you're just as nervous as I am. But as always, hope you guys all enjoy. I'll see you all next week, and until then, take care.